Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 9x90. Today, I have a very special guest here with me. His name is Eric Brody. Some of you might know him as Professor E from online. He has done some amazing things in the real estate space. As many of you know, my family's been in that space for more than 100 years. So I can spot the good ones really fast and spot the fakes really fast. And when I first met him, I was like, oh my God, like everyone needs to hear your comeback story because this is insane. So after a little bit of back and forth, we finally have him on the show today. You're welcome. So Eric, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now?
Yeah,
We'll go back.
sure. So I really appreciate the introduction. I think that it's important that the audience knows, preferably don't have to come back, might as well just keep winning. It's
Yeah.
not necessary to have the comeback story, but I guess, those scars are what make life so interesting. And the real question is, are you capable of such? So let's go back. So the real story starts with, I was a son of an architect and a public school teacher. So my parents are like, well, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, oh, I'm going to build buildings and develop real estate. They're like, well, how are you going to do that? So I went to construction school. I understood the zoning resolution and the building code of the city of New York. And as a Brooklyn kid, it's like only New York. And that's a whole other story that you should
Yeah.
really look into is on a macro thesis, maybe look everywhere, not just in this one sector. But I was young,
Yeah.
I was hungry and, ambitious. So I went to construction school, and what was really fascinating is my father would be like, you should work here, but I'm not going to pay you. You don't know how to design, you don't know how to really, you're not a creative, but you should work here as an indentured servant. So Monday through Friday, from
So
nine to
you have
like
the same parents as me. You have the same parents as me.
yes. 9 to 5, my father would have me in an architectural office, but since I wasn't designing, which was amazing, is he'd be like, go to landmark preservation, go to the Department of Buildings and file this, because at the time everything wasn't digital, right? Go to this site, check this detail for me. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but I was going to construction school 4 nights a week from 6 to 9. So you would learn something, building materials and methods of construction, underpinning. And I'm like, Dad, I went and I read about underpinning. He's like, great, go to 133rd Street, ask for a gym. You're going to see an underpinning. And oh, by the way, drop this drawing off. And I'd be like, all right, that's what I
No,
would do all
so
day,
you were getting to study and see it in real time simultaneously, which
which was the greatest gift out there. Now, what else did I
yeah.
get? You need to understand all the players in the game. So the structural engineer comes to the office. The MEP engineer comes to the office. You need to coordinate drawings. So every subcontractor, HVAC, plumbing, mechanical, sprinkler, all has to come to the office to figure out how to coordinate. So now you're meeting all the players in the game from this angle. You're
Yeah.
learning construction and development from the design process. So I'm like, all right, cool. And then since they weren't paying me, I had to broker on the weekends. And brokerage is sort of the front end of the game. Like, what are people looking at to add value? How are they looking at it? What are the return metrics that they're looking for, and how do they analyze it? So you were getting all of these pieces of the puzzle. So I was brokering on the weekends, working for my father 9 to 5, and going to construction school 6 to 9. And
Oh
what
my
happened?
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Eventually, I know it was a lot, but like, what are you going to do? There's
How
no
old were you
balance
when
in life.
how old were you when you were doing that?
Well, when I left college, I wanted to own a chain of gyms. So I did that for like 2 years before I realized better to own the real estate and not the gym and just get a tenant as a gym. So I was 23 when I went to construction school. So I'd
And
gone to university, I graduated,
what
I'd
did
been working for 2 years.
what did you study in university?
I studied women, I studied alcohol, I studied, how to sell and create really small businesses like
What,
delivering water. Oh, I eventually went to school. That's right.
what was
School,
your
school.
degree?
You're
What
supposed
was
to
your
go to school. I had a Bachelor of Science in Communications, and you can riddle me that.
degree?
Okay. I was a confused young man.
Okay. No, I mean, a lot of people do that. That's what my mom did. She's like, if you get your degree in communications, you can have fun in college. And I didn't listen, and I got my degree in medicinal and biological chemistry and had no fun in college. Yeah.
It's true. You know, the greatest gift that college had given me was how to sort of regulate your time. Because what did I really do? When I got to my junior year and realized that none of this was actually going to be that effective in the real world, I was like, I'm going to need to be an entrepreneur. So I went to the Small Business Administration, which is outside of the university, but usually in every major capital city. And I learned how to write business plans because at the end of the day, we have these philosophies that we're going to start this business and we're obsessed about it. But most of the most famous people in the universe who have ever done anything were not obsessive. They were obsessive, but they were prolific. How much could they generate until they found a masterpiece? So when you look at businesses in general, you need to iterate. You need to, oh, I want to open a flower shop. Then you need to kill that. Why? Oh, I want to open gyms. Then you need to kill, meaning it's iteration after iteration after iteration to eventually get to this place where I was like, how did you know how to do that? You're a genius. It's like, I wasn't a genius. I was prolific. In
But
order to be
you played
prolific,
sports. You played
what's that?
sports. You played sports?
I at that time I was just working out because women liked it when you were in shape. So that's what you have to do, you know? So I was in shape. I played anything that anything that would keep me in shape. I was, you know, and I was all full of bluster. So I was doing this MMA fighting like a Riri, and I had it. It's so dumb. I had a ring in my eye, and then I would tape it, and all I would do is get punched in the face. It was really dumb. You do a lot of dumb stuff. So I fought. I lifted weights. I did a bunch of cardio just so I was prepared for whatever sport anyone wanted to play.
Okay, because what you're saying, where like you iterate really fast, that mentality is really common among athletes. Like s people will say they're like, you get hit and you come back up 2 seconds later, and it's like, well, but that's what you're trained to do in sports. Like you get knocked down in the soccer game, and you don't only just get up, you have to get up and start charging because whoever just knocked you down is like 30 feet ahead of you. And setting those like neural pathways in your brain that the second you get hit, you bounce back up and sprint, like applying that to business. You see people in business applying that, and it's like they're unstoppable. So your comeback story now has more context because you got pummeled and then you came back up swinging.
There's a few things, and I agree with you 100%. Also, what sports does is being uncomfortable, okay? Discomfort, right? Like
Yeah.
people don't like to be uncomfortable. They don't react well to discomfort.
Yeah.
When you have to learn that you are the observer of the discomfort, we're all going to be uncomfortable. The more that you can be uncomfortable and the more that you can find space, like in the movie 300, where they push the enemy 3 feet, and then in that 3 feet is where they attack. You have to get used to the discomfort, right? And sports and weightlifting and endurance athletes understand that it's a part of the game and it's how you react under that discomfort. And that is like what life certainly can be about when it comes to being effective in business. You have to be uncomfortable and be okay with it.
Yeah.
So what really it taught me, as I was saying, is, you know, it's an iteration. Do business, underwrite a business, throw it away, underwrite, throw away until you find the one that makes sense.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you can put your force behind it and take 100% risk, because there's also the idea of diversification when you have nothing means it's just doesn't make any sense. You need to put your entire force behind sort of the Achilles heel of whatever it is and attack through it. So you need to study, throw away business until you find the one that makes sense and run for it. And that to me was sort of construction and development, but it was coming from when I was thinking about it, construction. People hated construction. Capital doesn't like construction. I like to get their hands dirty. So that was my Achilles heel. If I could be the most credible party, which was expertise and trustworthiness into the construction space, that would be the way into the game. And that
Okay.
was what I did. And I started a development company, but it was really three things. It was an owner rep, I was a consultant to get fees, and a developer when I found the actual asset. Okay. So you have to find the deal in order to become a quote unquote developer. So here I am running around. I'm in construction school. I'm you know, working as an indentured servant, and I'm brokering. And then what happened? One day a listing comes in for a two-family home in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn. The two-family home is for sale, but I look at it because now, remember, I went to a construction school where I understood the zoning resolution, which is basically the theoretical density of an asset, like what you can actually build on a piece of property. And this really was an 8-unit building. It was a 25 by 158 lot. And I was like, wait a fucking second. They're
Yeah.
selling a two-family home but this lot is really an 8-family building. Here's an inefficiency. Oh my God, I found it, right? So now when you divide the acquisition cost by what we call floor area, it was cheap. You were like, oh my God, there's more. I didn't know what to do. It was like I found the golden ticket. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to win. And then I raised that money because when you have something that people want where it really makes sense, people will invest in you. So we raised the money for it. We developed this building. It was an 8-unit building. Remember, I knew construction. So when I'm talking to lenders, they're like, oh, this kid must know it. I'm 25, 24. I'm talking out of my tushy. I don't know anything, but I know more than them. And I realized when you know more about something than other people, they find you to be credible. And eventually it was true because, like you were saying, in sports and other things, you just have to do exactly as you say. So we built this building. I wound up building about 15 buildings at that time. And it was, and the one thing I asked of my partners is I get all the press. So, I understood the
Oh,
power of
that's smart.
PR and getting that credibility, because when you look in real estate and construction, there's sort of one of the things is always about your reputation and who you are. So that was really one of the most important things. And that's how like a lot of lenders and capital base it. Okay. So fast forward, I'm building, I'm developing, I'm all ego. I must be the man, right? And all of a sudden, '08 hits. And I didn't have any inventory. I was lucky. I was lucky. And I didn't even see it as luck. I had no risk on the table, so to speak. I had no developments I needed to pay back. Everything had sold, and I'm looking for new deals. And that wasn't true for everyone. So
Yeah.
I meet a guy, and he's a contractor developer. Now, I was a developer who understood construction, but I didn't have a construction company because construction is a separate business. And he's developing a building, and he's like, I need help from the development perspective. We do a 28-unit building together, and I'm working with his construction team. And he's like, after it, he's like, you're really good in this space. I'd be interested in, he's like, what are you going to do now? Because in '08, as you recall, development is in the toilet, right? And you need volume of deal flow to be making fees. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start a construction company, right? Because I need a job, right? Like development is an investment game. Construction is a cash flow income game. So I'm like, yo, I'm going to start a construction company. He's like, don't do that. Partner with me. Lo and behold, we become one of the largest open shop non-union construction companies in New York. And we're developing buildings that are 218 units in Williamsburg called the Houston. We did a 21-story building. We really become this force in New York of development contractors.
Yeah.
And my trajectory would have stayed the same, right? And what I know about construction and development, eventually you're going to get hurt. And when coronavirus hit this time, unlike the last time where I was in the matrix dodging the bullets hit me and they hit me directly square in the head. And I had developed a building, a 21-story building. And when Corona hit, we were going to refi to a rental and there was no more capital in the market. And the existing lender is like Goodfellas, F you, pay me, right? They're not waiting for you. You got to pay, even if it's Corona, right? They don't care, right? The courts weren't saying it's a once in a lifetime event. They're like, look, it's business. You're a commercial person. You deal with it. And for the first time, I was foreclosed upon on December 8th, 2020. And my world crashed. It was a 21-story building, 68 million in debt, raised about I think 15 in equity, and everyone is wiped out. And that is just the beginning of your trouble because now you just lost something that you were 4 to 5 years on. But there's so much more to go because you signed guarantees. So then the lender went after the guarantees and they won. And they won a $15 million personal judgment against me and my partner. And in the development game, if you don't have a balance sheet or capital, you're not in the game. So here I am in the MMA fight of life, thinking I was a big swinging macher, doing all of these incredible things. And now I wind up waking up in 2021, negative $15 million. And if you have any idea what it means to have a judgment creditor, it's a whole other business. And you want to talk about how you can suffer and survive? You really have to learn what it means to suffer to survive. Okay.
What is a judgment creditor?
So it means that instead of we all try to protect our assets, okay? But we personally, especially in construction and development and signing loans and real estate, will sign some things where there is a certain amount of portion of it that is personally guaranteed. Now, the whole amount isn't personally guaranteed, but maybe a carry guarantee, maybe an interest reserve guarantee. But imagine if you take $100 million loan, that could be to the tune of $1 million a month. right? So like, yo, I'm not guaranteeing 100 million, but you're guaranteeing $1 million a month. So eventually that accrues during the default process. It added up to 15 million. And it's not as if they take the asset and then just by taking it, right, they're whole. They're not whole because if the asset's worth less than the loan, they can come after you personally. And when they come after you personally, the judge can eventually say, yeah, you owe this money. And that's called that means you have a judgment against you, meaning your personal accounts, your personal assets, and they can sell everything that you own to
Yeah.
recoup their money. And you're seeing it all over New York today. And you're seeing it all over the country.
Yeah.
And, you know, so you're there and you're like, wow, what am I going to do now? Right. And that, I was in an article on The Real Deal. There were 4 developers that this happened to. And 2 of those developers, just to talk about the seriousness of it, killed themselves. Like they couldn't live with the fact that they would have to start over. So
Yeah.
we're talking about serious discomfort, right? And that's where this story really begins, right? The real story begins is like now you're in what your perception. Listen, at the end of the day, I wasn't at war, I'm not a soldier, I didn't lose my life. We're talking about business death. Okay. So you need to put things in perspective,
Yep, I know. But like in the startup space, you have a lot of suicide as well. In the family office space, you have a lot of suicide as well. So I hate when people try to say that like a death in war is more tragic than a death somewhere else. I had 2 friends commit suicide, one in November and one in December of this year. And I'd say death is death. It's painful regardless of where it happens or why it happens.
Thank you. That's all right. Cool. I'm downplaying it. But let's talk about it, right? So
Yeah.
now you're in discomfort, serious discomfort. So then the question is, what are you going to do? Okay. So there's 2 sides to the equation that I saw. So the first one is you have to work on yourself. So if you're externally validating, you need to learn and find the power within, which isn't me, that's Carl Jung, right? Those
Yeah.
who look without dream, those who look within realize. So the first thing is, and I can go on this whole hour and we could talk about the spirituality and finding, that you are a warrior and that you can come back and you don't need to suffer and, getting rid of your ego and what you're supposed to be to others. And there's this whole side of it. But let's keep it business. And I love talking about that. Like that is a part of the process. On the other side is, what are you going to do about business? Okay. You're negative. Like, are you just going to sit there and allow the universe to just, in the MMA fight, just keep getting knocked down? It's like, how are you going to get up? So the first thing is you're going to have to deal with the litigation. And I did. And after 2.5 years, we settled the $15 million judgment. Okay. It got settled. I'm negative because you have to borrow money to settle, but I'm not negative 15. I'm negative a space that is like, okay, maybe I can come back.
Yeah.
But now the question is, okay, what do you do? So the first thing is I have a partner, by the way, who was incredible, who's with me throughout this. His name is Mark. And I go, Mark, what do we do? He goes, first, we should do, and I talk about it because we had special forces friends and the rest of it, they're called an after action report. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
do an after action report and we say, as we're researching why this went right and what went wrong, we found a data analytics platform that said inventory plus shadow inventory divided by rate of absorption is way too much product in this micro market. Now, people will say, well, you could still be the best in that micro market, but if you're thinking in bets, it's a terrible bet. You don't,
Yeah.
when you're playing poker, you're not like, let me go all in when I have a 2% chance of winning because maybe the right card turns over. No, you want to have the 80% chance and go all in because look, now I've done the best I could. Maybe I was wrong, but at least I have the right opportunity. So it's like, would you have done the deal? And I'm like, wow, no. What else don't I know? So I researched 9,000 tech companies with him, and we write a 250-page report, and we have no idea why. We're just like, we don't know why. Now, I had an 80-unit project I was developing, so there were for some fees, and I had a 71-unit project. So like things are moving along, but it's like, why did we do that? So then me and him go, you know what? We should invest in publicly traded tech stocks. And my friend who runs a hedge fund and he's in Charlotte is like, why are you doing that? You don't know anything about that. You should start a venture fund. And we're like, great, let's start a venture fund. So we go to our friends with the thesis we're going to invest into real estate tech companies that we know no matter what are changing the game. And it's obvious to us.
Oh, so it's like
Obvious.
asymmetrical wins. Yeah. Yeah.
So we raised money, right? This is at a time I had nothing, but people were like, Eric, we believe in you because, like you're saying, like I'm a warrior, I'm unstoppable, I'm going to keep driving. The
Yeah.
next thing is we always read books. We're always learning. So I read Tim Ferriss's Tool of Titans and he goes, start a podcast. That way you create an ecosystem. So I'm like, yeah, podcast. So
Yeah. I
I
love that.
started.
I cut that book into thirds and I would read a section and then I would implement from that section, then read the next section. That book changed my life. That book, yeah, it was amazing. But
Yeah, just always, right? To always be like, is there a subject you're fascinated on that can affect your business? Like things aren't immediate. You might as well read about it, research it, and then implement and decide. Like, chill, take time, make the right decision. So we start a podcast. It does really well. Okay. Because it's at a time when everyone starts to realize that content is becoming a currency, especially in real estate. We saw it with Sirhan and with others that really started doing well in the resi space. Then the real deal reaches out to me and they go, hey, Eric, we love you on camera. We should start creating some TV shows because they too realize they need to create content, right? This is when Corona hit and the New York Times had the Daily and like Rogan is doing well. So everyone realizes like content is like sort of what the future is. So they start and they need people to do it.
but it's not just content. It's not just content. It's people being transparent and real with the content that they're creating. Because I found after I went through some really horrible traumatic experiences, those scars and discussing them and coming out the other side, having survived, that's what drew people to me was the authenticity that you develop, I guess, as you come out the other side of a horrible experience. So I would argue that with your own situation, the reason that they pulled you in and that they wanted you there is because you went through hell, you came out christened on the other side, and you bring a presence with you that you can match. And that's what they're wanting, is they're wanting authentic content from people who are okay with not being perfect all the time, but they're going to be honest with you and tell you what's really going on, because there's AI creating all this fake content where everything looks perfect and people are sick of it. Like I had a live Q&A I did where I was completely frazzled, came running in. I had my gym ring still on. I had to switch into my real ring, and like people loved that episode. And I was like, but I was like completely frazzled. It was the holidays or whatever it was. And that's the content that's king right now, is the authentic content.
You are 100% correct, right? Creating content is irrelevant if how you communicate that message, the storytelling isn't there. I just brushed over it because it's like creating content, right? I was lucky and blessed to be able to communicate a message with specific storytelling only by being authentic. I have no idea how to act. I can just say it the way I see it, and that is working. So, like, yes, I was blessed in that regard. So people came up to me and they said, are you a venture capitalist? And I'm like, no, I just raised a couple $1,000,000. Like, you can't live off of that. Maybe if I hit a unicorn, by the way, but
Yeah.
that hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's a 10-year horizon. They said, are you a podcaster? I'm like, podcaster. Real estate is a wealthy industry, but it's not enough views for YouTube to be paying me. Like, this is for real estate. This isn't for, I'm not creating this content for a monetary gain. There's no such thing really. And then the real deal, people are like, do you work for them? I'm like, no. Like, it's just, I know that content is becoming a currency. They're a great platform. I love the principles there. So like, I'm down to do it. So then the answer, my partner and I are like, so what are we going to do? Like, how do we monetize? Like, what's happening? Right. So there's this, there's this movie called Blow. Have you heard of the movie Blow with Johnny Depp?
I think you told me to watch it. I have not watched it yet.
Okay. Okay. So, and it's just because I like this line. And the line goes, Johnny Depp's character goes to jail for selling marijuana. And he goes, I went to jail with a bachelor's in marijuana and I left with a PhD in cocaine.
Yes,
Our
you told me that.
situation
Yeah.
was, our situation was, we went into this business never understanding, sort of like what could actually occur in distress. And we left with a PhD in distressed real estate. We knew what it means to be in distress. We knew what it means to have to restructure, how to fight legally. And we're like, we should get into distressed real estate. But how about saving developers like myself so that they don't have to go through what I went through? Okay.
Yeah.
And at the same time, remember, I settled. So now I'm on the other side of this going, wow, what did we learn? How can we look at the universe differently? So we're like, you know what we'll do? We'll do a rescue capital fund. And rescue capital is preferred equity or mezz debt into existing assets. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not some, you know, groundbreaking thesis. I'd say everyone and their mother right now is trying to do just that. Right. So we're like, this is what we're going to do.
Well, there are also a lot of people that need capital for it because with the Heritage Fund that I just joined, we were looking at where to deploy capital, and several different people were like, "Can we take it here?" So a lot of people are trying to get into it. I'd say the existing players have the uphand on it just because like some of them have a 20-year track record, but they're also looking for dry powder.
Well, I think what you're saying is true, right? So I know it's true. So there's two things. One is being an asset manager. Okay. Are you the expert in that space to operate through distress? Okay.
Yeah,
Asset manager. You don't have to be the actual doer, but can you watch the doer? Asset manager. Then you got fund manager. I have the capital, but I can't get bogged down into the minutia. I need to deploy capital and get a return on that. Then those fund managers are trying to raise cash to go into the fund to find the asset manager to execute on that project. So there's all these places for everyone to sort of to play. We didn't
yeah,
really know that. We were really asset managers who wanted to be asset fund managers. So we go to capital fund managers and we go to them and we go, give us money. And they're like, well, have you ever been in credit or distress? And I'm like, I know distress, but not in credit, They're like, well, you don't know anything. Like, why are we going to give you money? I'm like, because I built 40 buildings. What are you talking about? Like, I know what I'm doing. They're like, yeah, but, you don't have a deal. I'm like, wait, what are you saying? They're like, well, if you own the deal flow, we have to pay attention to you. We have to work with you because you're the one driving the opportunity because the fund managers need the asset managers to drive the deal flow.
yeah,
We're like, so then we're like, aha, that is a tech problem. Is there a universe where we could know every deal that's occurred, find the parties in that deal, and then technically it's not a tech problem, it's a funnel issue or funnel dynamics, right? But you can use text application to it to scale that to an immense scale, right? Can you know every deal that's occurred since 2018? Find everyone who's been involved in that deal and then market to them and say, look, we have different ways of working with you, capital. We have expertise, we can help you, whatever that was. Then we went to, and people said, so why do you have a tech ecosystem? And that was why the tech ecosystem, because I went to technology's application of real estate attacks our fundamentals. Why do you think that way? Why? You need radical transparency in business. You need people looking at your business from every angle. You do this really well, where you have all these people attacking. It's not personal. Why are you looking at it that way? Why this? Why that? Because real estate follows like the same path. They're not questioning, right? Everyone is like, they're not attacking the way in which their thesis is or how they're looking at things or what aren't they understanding because they have this real estate mind, which is quite linear. Tech, on the other hand, is very creative, moves very fast, has a different understanding. And for them, I went to them and said, how can I solve this problem of deal flow? And we started to create these internal engines, also predicated on marketing and expertise and real estate and development and finance with the application of scalability with technology. And we started to really push that out. And it's landed today where you're saying the comeback story. So what is the comeback story, right? Like, where are you? We got into a space called capital advisory, which basically is debt equity brokerage. If I bring you money to your deal, I get a fee.
yeah,
Okay. That's income. Okay.
yeah.
And then is opportunity, what you can do with that income. So let's talk about income first. We closed a $5 million deal where a credit fund had foreclosed on a developer. So let's just talk about this. A credit fund, meaning the lender, forecloses on the developer and says, what are we going to do with this asset? Are we going to sell it? They were going to get 50% of their money back. They met me and I say, well, I'll get you money and you should finish your business plan of finishing the building. They're like, yeah, but we don't do that. I was like, I'll be your capital advisor and your asset manager, and I'll get you your money back. And that was our first deal. So in a Machiavellian sense, which is what is the effective truth? What is the result? We were able to get the financing and finish the asset.
Wow.
So we're like,
Wow.
okay, we have product market fit here. Okay, we have something that does work. And then the question is, well, how did you get that deal? Right. And it's like spokes on a wheel of marketing. What do? LinkedIn, Insta, email, follow-up, automation, newsletter. Everyone's always talking about, well, what do you do? Where does it come from? It comes from everything, right? What is it that you're doing in order to drive deal flow? Exactly.
Yeah, the whole book.
Exactly. The whole book. And what's interesting about that is we're all marketing companies who then have a product or service, right? So like it's extremely important. So boom. Then we get another loan, 10 million. And we get another one, 25. And we get another one, 75, right? All these starting to come down the funnel that we've created, right? And that created income. But when you get under the kimono of capital, how they think, what they're looking at, having these conversations, more and more opportunities come. Can you put money and invest in notes? Can you develop buildings with people who need some of your expertise? So it creates an investment vehicle. And with that, maybe we'll become a fund. I don't know. But right now, I want to be the best capital advisor in the space. And in order to do that, we were able to identify all capital providers up and down the cap stack and onboard them to a usable database. So when you come to me and you say, I got a deal here, I got a deal there, I know who's invested there, who's interested, what type of capital, how we can structure this in a way that's most accretive to you, the borrower, the developer, the sponsor. But on the other hand, the capital needs the opportunity to the deal, and we're seeing more deal flow than is humanly possible. So with that, is what ANAX was. And that's the comeback story that you talked about. And that is a scalable business.
So with ANAX, how can you walk us through a little bit? Like, I'm listening to between 20 and 100 pitches a month, and then I tell people, oh, I think this one's good, shortlist this one. How are you taking those 100 pitches that I would have listened to and shortening that list? Like, what criteria are you looking at?
For ourselves or for other companies?
For putting that you put on ANAX, because don't you put the deals on there?
So, okay, so that's a great point, and it's really fascinating, and it's sort of a identity crisis that technology is having in real estate. Okay, so let's talk a bit about technology's application to real estate. Okay, technology, and if you look at just in the capital raise and you look at a website called Credi, CRETI.
Okay.
Hype. We were getting hyped 2018, 2019, 2020. Everyone's like, real technology is changing real estate, right? 20 billion, 22 billion. Then we started going public with some of these tech companies, and the market was like, what is this? Is it tech? Is it real estate? I don't understand. Like, and all of a sudden, tech's evaluations tank, right? And it's like, everyone's like, we know tech is changing real estate, but is it tech? Is it real estate? Is it venture? Is it, backed? Should it be real estate backed by LPs? And there's this identity crisis going on, right?
There's also so, like, as you pointed out before, there are a lot of players in the real estate space, but there are so few that actually understand each asset. So when you have one of these tech tools that helps you with something, there's like 50 people relying on one specialist in that specific asset class, and they look at them and say, decide for me, is this tech useful? So people look at the real estate market and they're like, my God, there are so many players here, but they don't realize how many of those players are only moving one chess piece, and then they back off and they let somebody else move the next chess piece. So that's where not even just an identity crisis. It's like a young marketer might have looked at the data and been like, my God, the market size is huge, but they didn't understand internally how we operate. Like, I tell people it's a soccer team, and the main reason I get flown up to New York City is someone will be trying to cut someone out of a seat at the table. And I always have to say, look, it's better for us to have a huge pie with a bunch of tiny slices than it is for one person to have the whole pie and it's this small and it's burnt to a crisp because they didn't know what they were doing. And so you see, like, that's I think where we're having some issues with real estate technology is it's a tool that's useful to a huge market, but it's only useful to a few key people in that huge market.
So I say two things, right?
Yeah.
One is domain expertise. Technology doesn't have domain expertise, so they're not meeting the human where they are. And how you would add value to what it is that they do. Maybe eventually you replace them. First, you got to meet them where they're at, show them that value so they want to use it. And in order to do that, you have to understand like what is slowing them down or what makes it more efficient in their space. Are you saving them money? Are you saving them time? Are you allowing them to scale? And if the answer is like, I thought I was solving this and I need this tool and this widget, like it doesn't work. You have to understand what they need. The second thing is everyone does it differently and they're already like doing really well, right? Like, you know, like they're making money. So like, how do you get somebody to want to change what they're doing? Can you hold 1 second for me? I just have to respond to something. I apologize.
It works. Are you getting texts for deals right now too? Because I just had someone.
No, someone is here.
But I had a notification pop up. They said, "Hey, we have a deal in Denver. We want you to look at." And I'm like, mute.
Yeah, right now, right?
Yeah,
Like, right?
yeah.
Like, get off of it.
Give me 4 seconds, please. Yeah. I love it. The other one I love is when like someone that's new to real estate is like, "Oh, I have a really good deal for you," and I like do the back of the envelope math, and I'm like, "That's not a deal. That's a nightmare." And they're like,
Yeah.
"What?" And like, look at this multiple. Like, this is the first multiple I look at before anything else. I was like, this multiple should have the valuation of that property around 3, maybe 4 million. And you're telling me that it's selling for 51 million. No one's touched it. It's been on the market for 7 months. That's why. Like.
So,
Yes.
okay, so to go back to, so you have domain expertise. The second thing is, the second thing is real estate is Machiavellian. If it needs to work right now and show me how to make money. Technology is an iteration. It's learning, it's growing, it's getting more effective. So they're not speaking the same language. Okay. So technology's application was real estate is like, pay this fee every month and I'm going to provide you this service. And real estate's like, show me the money, right? So it was really hard for these tech and real estate companies to come together. So when you ask me about ANAX, and remember, I'm in the ecosystem. I mean, I got a podcast, I'm talking to tech, I'm investing in it. I'm like, you know what? I think that the solution is forget it. You need to build your own proprietary technology to disintermediate or automate or whatever it is that you feel is the value in-house. And to the real estate market, you just say, I am a service providing real estate company. And when you prove that you're doing more deals than them, or you're growing faster than what they're doing, or you're making more money per pound, per person than anyone else, and you have a more efficient model, they'll be like, what did you do? So for us at
Yeah.
ANAX, right?
Yeah.
We are a hybrid, we say. And by the way, we don't know of a category of company like this, and maybe many real estate companies have a ton of technology engines and data lakes behind them, and that's great. Like I'm not saying that they don't, but to us, that's the way to do it. Make money as a real estate company, and then underneath the hood, you could talk about how you disintermediated or automated or created greater efficiencies. So for us, we started to retain engineers to build for us a system that allows me to be 10x more effective than my counterparts. So we are a hybrid real estate company. We say we're an enabled real estate company, but real estate is still a high touch point business, just like you said. This guy does manufacturing in Texas and he doesn't go outside of it. Well, how are you valuable to that person? Everything is so siloed and segmented, but that's changing. And what level is that changing on? The data level. Right now, there used to be so much disparate data, and now we're hoovering that up. We're seeing it, which is starting to give us more access to the data for decision making, which will then trickle down to all of the rest of these middle market businesses. So for us, yeah, sure.
Let's dive into the data for a second. So you said that there was a platform you looked at that was telling you about inventory versus shadow inventory. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so there's a book by this guy, John Gaddis, called On Strategy, which basically inherently states the more variables that you have to decision making, the better. Okay. But what do we like listening to is on politics, someone who says something in one simple, really simple variable. We're like, oh, that must be true. Technically, you want thousands that come to a conclusion, you're probably more accurate.
Yeah.
But I found one and I went with it for this story. So what it was called was Market Proof. And Market Proof basically collected all data for condos in New York. Okay. So in New York, you're allowed to have what we call shadow inventory, meaning it's not on the market. If I have a 50-unit building, I can release 5 units, but technically I have 50 units, right? 45 that aren't on the market and 5 that are on the market. So there was no database of information for that. What we also have to understand with these different tech companies is they're pulling information from many places, right? We know a company right now that understands about 86% of all loans that closed in 2024. They have 36 inputs, right? So when you're starting to think about data, it's really how do you capture close to 100% of data? It's many different things, very plugins to municipalities, deals with title companies, right? So this company had solved for New York. They knew how to input every condo deal transaction, what was coming to the market, what was shadow inventory. So what is that? Department of Buildings data, New York State data, data from brokers, and they would aggregate that data to create a marketplace. And basically, that's what we did. We plugged in when we bought the land, what was the product coming to the market, what was on the market, and we found that in this micro market, there was way too much product and absorption wasn't there. The demand wasn't there. If you would have known that, would you have moved forward? The answer is, I don't know, right? I'm going back in time, but it would have given me pause. It would have said, man, maybe you better check your sensitivity analysis to make sure that if the market tanks on you, you're okay. Right.
Yeah.
And then something like, look, the market doesn't look at me as a failure. Something called coronavirus came right at the worst time. And if there would have been access to capital, it would have been fine because my basis was there, but there wasn't. Everyone thought they were dying. We forget what was happening. Like
Yeah.
no one was giving money because they didn't know if they were even going to be alive. We weren't even in our right minds at the time.
Yeah.
Today, on my asset, there would have been tons of rescue capital. There would have been tons of people. Our basis was so low. So like, the universe doesn't look as a total failure. I did, but I had to get off of that too. No self-pity. But the point being is that was one data point. I could have found more. It could have been like, and what product should we be hitting? You know, because many people did super high end and did really well. You know, you just need to have staying power.
Yeah. Yeah. A few people are like, why are you going into, why are you focusing on office right now? But the returns we're able to get in office right now, because so few people are looking there. And I was speaking with someone who's a fund manager yesterday. He has 33 years of experience. They only do multifamily. And I was like, well, these are the deals we're closing on, and this is the return we're getting right now. And he's like, I can't even get close to that. I was like, because you have to go outside of multifamily. Like multifamily, there's not a lot of opportunities right now. I think you're going to have some white knight opportunities where people are defaulting and you can come in and scoop up. But those white knight moves are going to have to be left to people who know how to structure it to be the white knight.
I think that that's like a really great point, right? So what changed the aperture, right? Because me, I was New York or nothing. Like, you know, I either build here and develop here or
Everyone
nothing.
is
And
like that. Everyone is like
what an ego trip. Because at the end of the day, if you just would have looked at domestic migration, you would have been down south, Texas, Zona. You would have taken all of the things that you know and who you are and gone elsewhere, right? Because like, why New York? Why do you have to like beat yourself up?
Just for a second, like even Edward, I'll tell him like, look, I found this really great opportunity, and he's like, you could do that in New York. Every single time, he's like, you can do that in New York. You can do that in New York. Like it's people who are in New York City are just like committed to the city. Like there is nothing else outside of New York City. And I remember like I grew up there and I didn't think anything existed. There was like New York City and the rest of the world. Like, and then when you get outside that bubble, there's so many amazing things you can do in real estate. There's always some sort of niche market. If you're willing to find good asset managers and move with different asset managers and know how to assess them, there's always great markets where you can get these great, crazy returns. But you have to go outside the New York bubble. Sorry, Edward.
But you know what? It's funny. There's a few things. It's not only New York, it's also structured capital, right? Like where are you playing? Like how are you structuring it, right? There's all when you open the aperture of how capital is making money, you realize there's asset, like what you're saying, there's geography, like you're saying, and then there's how you're investing, like we're saying, and then what is the risk adjusted return? And you start talking to capital and like, oh my God, they look at the universe totally differently. And then the question is, where is the opportunity based on that, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm dealing with a guy who thinks that the latest theory, which I think is fascinating, is that it's small commercial is about to tank like in '08 for the residential mortgage backed securities. It's the small commercial backed securities. And guess what? You and I will never hear about it. It's not news. When the guy's got an $8 million loan on a commercial space somewhere, defaults, and they're coming after him, nobody cares. It's not big enough. It's not enough noise. It's not enough news. But imagine you could buy the debt on that. That was $8 million. You could buy the debt on that for $4.5 million, restructure that building, and then sell it for $6 million in 12 months. You're like, wait, what? You're like, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to make capital and make money in real estate. But without me and the tech ecosystem attacking all of my ways of thinking, without me now having gone and realized, let me open the aperture to how capital looks at the universe and listening to them and hearing them, none of these things would have happened, right? Because you get so linear, like you're saying about New York. So they say that humans will not change what they're doing until their daily life is so much suffering that they will step into the abyss. So like the blind Zen master says, people would say to me when I got foreclosed on, oh, I'm so sorry. But as the blind Zen master says, we'll see. Maybe that was the greatest thing to have ever happened to me because of the comeback. You just have to be uncomfortable long enough. So
Yeah.
now we're just seeing tons of opportunities around the country and in New York, and different scenarios.
So let's shift gears, because I feel like we usually leave like a few minutes for talking about like soft skills, philosophy, psychology, things like that. I would say of all of the people I have to work with in the commercial real estate space, you're one of the more emotionally aware and intelligent, and like you acknowledge people's emotions when they're communicating with you, which is very rare. So can we dive into when this happened to you? That's when you decided you like opened your eyes to develop this emotional awareness, or do you attribute it to your daughters, or kind of what's the evolution there?
Yeah. And again, the other side of this story is, you lose everything. It included a lot of personal things. And I just don't want to disparage or say anything negative. So let's just say emotionally and spiritually, you were broken. I externally validated myself my entire life. Why? Because if you said I was great, then I must have been. How did that manifest itself? I did martial arts my whole life. Why? Because when I was young, I would get robbed. And like 5 kids would come up to me, and I was in Brooklyn. They have knives or guns or whatever it was. And I felt helpless. So how do you go against that? It's like, oh, let me learn how to fight so well, but I'm protecting this little boy inside of me that feels helpless. You didn't address that, by the way. When 5 kids come up to you with guns, guess what? You better be helpless. Like, forgive yourself for that, right? So you
Yeah.
went through this life never being what's simple, and we talk about all the time, self-aware, aware of yourself, right? So I had to learn first. I had a spiritual advisor, shrink, whatever you want to call it, to even identify patterns. But then the question is like, you need to be aware of those patterns. How do you become aware? Do you know that there's a little boy or a little girl inside of you? Is that your friend? Or are they telling you you're not enough? Or do you love yourself? Because if you don't love yourself, everything around you is going to use you, you're going to attract what's emanating within you. And you're like, this is corny. I hate this shit. But the reality is, it's true. We're talking about thousands of years of Buddhism and Christ and Judaism and all of these people basically telling you, you better become aware of who and what you are. And the question is, how do you do that? Right? Like, you can
Yeah.
read about it, but what does that really mean? And yes, my daughters definitely helped, because you have to learn unconditional love. My daughters helped, and I always apologize to them that when they were born, I was not self-aware. Please forgive me for anything I may have done when I did not know or look at my own shadow, right? If you don't know and know yourself, you will put things on them that you don't understand, and they get it. So what do you do, right? I am a realist, right? So what did I do? Well, the first was, can you meditate? Can you slow down your brain? Why? It's not because, oh, I become some Buddhist. It's, can you slow down your brain to just give yourself a break, right? Can you find the 3 feet of space to attack? Because if you're charged, like getting tilted, remember the ping pong machines, you're making the wrong decision. So you need to have control over yourself. Do you get angry when people disagree with you? What are these triggers? Until you can see yourself and be calm with yourself, you wouldn't know the difference between being calm, triggered, happy, sad. You can't identify an emotion. So I started to meditate, right? The next thing was, how does your mind think subconsciously? So I would start to journal. Why? Everyone's like, oh, a journal, it's cathartic. I was like, no, I don't think it's cathartic. It's
That's me right now. I hate journaling.
yeah, but journal for a month. And people are like, then what? I'm like, read it. Read it. Read as if you're trying to study yourself every morning. I'm stressed. You're like, oh, maybe instead of being like, I'm stressed, being like, identify. You keep saying the same thing. What, like, you just need to see it first under a microscope. You keep saying the same damn thing every day. Don't you want to look into that? Then there's all these strategies. What am I making something mean? What is that coming from? But you first have to just identify it. So I started to write about it, just to read it. Then the next thing was, I believe, and I think it's true, like you got to start to subconsciously talk to yourself. Like if you always are negative, like do an affirmation. So I have this affirmation. Today's going to be a great day. How many times today did you say today's going to be like, even say that the possibility that today could be great? No, normally anxiety. I got a $15 million judgment. Life sucks. And you're like, well, in this moment, everything is perfect. Like this is it. You only live today. So you start to learn about living in the moment.
Yeah.
And then it goes on and on where you become aware of your triggers. So now if someone triggers me, right? Meaning I'm like, oh, thank you. That's a great teacher because it has nothing to do with them. They don't know me, right? It's my trigger in me coming from somewhere. Like you get cut off, right? Road rage. It's my favorite, road rage. Someone cuts you off, gives you the finger, right? And then you're like, I'm pissed off. So you let somebody in another car that you don't know, that knows nothing about you, ruin your day because they cut you off. The only one who can ruin my day now is me. That's my power. Only I can fuck my day up. You don't have control over shit. But if you do trigger me, I'm like, I write it down. I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, what was I making that mean? That is my beef. Right. And then people are like, what do you mean? It's like, close your mouth and say happy birthday. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, who heard you? Only you and you. So that was sort of the, spiritual. When I say something to people or I mess with, look, I'm still a dude. I like to fight. I like to do man stuff. But I also then say, yeah, I'm messing with you because I'm insecure, right? I like my friend plays golf. Yesterday, I'm on the phone with him. I'm like, oh, you waste all this time playing golf. What a waste of time. And he's like, what do you mean? I do great business. I'm like, it's not about you, dude. I'm kidding. It's my insecurity. I don't play golf, right? It's not you. It's
Yeah.
me, I want to play golf, or whatever it is. So
Do you want to learn? Because I played varsity.
no, not really. I just been jealous,
But
insecure that maybe business is being done on the golf course, but I don't want to play.
but my father used to say that 85% of his deals were either closed or fixed on a golf course. He made
I
us
know.
play starting in high school because of that.
I hear you. I hear you.
But you're not gonna
I'm
play.
in this I'm in this efficiency phase. I'm like, I don't have the 5 hours to play. And I don't want to have the 5 hours. So, but
Yeah.
yes, I think it's super being self-aware, by the way. And then people will say, like, the special forces guys told me about self-awareness, right? And one of my dear friends told me about it. It doesn't make you less masculine or less feminine to understand your feelings, right? I do martial arts. I fight. I lift weights. I'm not any less masculine if I tell you I feel insecure. You're not threatening me, right? We need to go and I need to protect my family, then I'm a savage. But otherwise, why can't you be vulnerable? What doesn't make me? These are two disparate things. So,
Yeah.
like, I needed to see all that and be a part of it, and it makes life a lot, healthier, a lot more interesting, a lot more grateful. Like when we met, it's karma. It's not like we met for a reason. Like it's just so much more interesting. Otherwise, we're just on a rock going at thousands of miles an hour into an infinity.
Yeah, that was wild because I wasn't even supposed to be going to that event. I was doing something else. And then I went to a friend's house for her birthday and she was like, but I got you a ticket. You have to come. And I was like, oh crap. So I get there and like everyone's talking. The book just came out. It's hit the, for those of you who don't know, this book came out. It hit, #1 new release in 5 categories, and I was like completely being bombarded in the event. And so I ducked into this room where a guy is sitting there on the computer in a pink shirt, and he glances at me with a way that I know he doesn't recognize me. And I was like, thank God, he's just gonna think I'm some like dumb blonde, so I could sit here in quiet for like 4 seconds. And then we start talking, and it turns out he knows one of my friends who wrote in the book. And then, yeah, so that, but it was a nice, like, little reprieve. Like, I literally ran into this room to hide, and that's how we met.
Listen, that's awesome. And congratulations on the book. But I want to clarify something.
Yes.
We were talking about it. Your dear friend Ed and myself are New Yorkers.
Yeah.
So we don't judge based on skin color, hair color. We judge based on most likely we don't like you. Okay. So it doesn't matter how you came in. Most likely I was like, I don't like her anyway. But then when we talked, I felt like the proper energy and what was occurring. And that was the reason that none of that mattered, right? Like, whether, who you are, what you are, it was first that we connect, which is so weird in today's society with politics and the rest of it. I'm like, how do you know you're even going to like them? Like, give them a chance, right? And then we can talk. So listen, it was a pleasure, and like, congratulations on the book. And I'm super excited for, all the things you have to come. I'm grateful that you gave me the opportunity to have a forum to communicate. And like, everyone should be looking out for us.
I think a lot of people that listen to this are going to enjoy this episode, because it's definitely been a very, very unique one. I mean, your story is just, it's wild. Like, you've literally played almost every spot on the soccer team, like Messi in soccer. But I'm in Miami. Everyone loves Messi, so that's the analogy I'm going with. But yeah, I think this was awesome. You have a deck for people who want to invest in ANAX, right?
Yeah, we look, first and foremost, anyone can reach out, right? We are willing to communicate with all. We are raising capital for ANAX right now to finish the technology that we were talking about. And at the same time, if you know these deals that we have closed, we won't need that capital, right? It's just the way it is. But yes, we can expand faster with the capital. Or if anyone is a borrower or needs capital, or anyone is a capital provider, if I don't know you and you're not onboarded to the platform, then I won't be able to send you the deals you're looking for. So anyone who is a principal, a borrower, or a capital provider to reach out.
Okay, and then we can embed your deck into the page that's hosting this interview.
Okay, cool. I'll send it to you.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and then you'll also give contact information, not your personal contact information, maybe one of your assistants, and we can embed that on the page. So if anyone is interested in learning more about ANAX, you can go to 9x90 to his page. It'll be 9x90.co/Eric Brody. And as we do with every guest, you can just find their name right there. Very easy. Click on his page. You'll see the deck for ANAX. You'll see more information if you want to join the platform and if you want to connect with one of his assistants. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today.
Thank you,
Eric, for
you got it.
joining us. It's been a pleasure.
All right, talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.